Hi, it's Michael Kerr here, presenting Small Business Banter. Welcome to the Small Business Banter podcast. I'm Michael Kerr, your host, and I'm also the founder of Kerr Capital, where I work day to day with business owners. The Small Business Banter podcast is built just for business owners and will be especially relevant if you're an owner looking to sell, if you've been unexpectedly approached by a potential buyer, or if you're an aspiring owner about to buy a new business. There's a lot on the line personally and financially. It's stressful, it's emotional, and it's usually new territory. So to help, each episode of Small Business Banter is a discussion between me and another business owner or an experienced small business advisor. We talk about their experiences. So what you'll get is practical, real-life advice, different takes on everyday problems, and a renewed confidence to tackle your own business challenges. Welcome into edition number 138 of the Small Business Banter podcast. Earl Eddings joins me today on the podcast. A big welcome, Earl.
Good morning, Michael. Good to catch up again.
It's great. I wanted to, continuing with the theme of Small Business Banter, talk about your extensive personal experience with exits of businesses of varying sizes. And as you just said, you've been on both sides of the equation. So could you just start with a little bit about the portfolio of Earl Eddings businesses and professional interests, including what you're doing right now?
Okay. Oh, thank you for being here, mate. It's always a good opportunity to talk to other small business owners. I've been there and done that, so I know some of the pitfalls and the joys it brings. My first business I set up from the third bedroom at home while my wife was 6 months pregnant with our first child, so that was interesting times in our life. But I just saw an opportunity in the market in a consulting capacity around health and safety and risk management. I saw a lot of big corporates weren't doing it that well. And lucky enough, we had a great client in Telstra and we built off the back of that. Did that for 4 or 5 years. And then we made the BRW top 25 startups and top 100 companies in 2005, yep, which put us on the radar a little bit.
That was called?
ARC Consulting Group. Build it up to about 10, 15 people. And interesting when you particularly in professional services, is a bit of a ratio. Most people don't get past the one person, that's fine. Or then you've got to jump to 4 people, and then you sort of get to 4 to 15, and then you've got to jump from 15 to 40 and 40 to 100. So it's a bit of a scary jump. We're not necessarily getting any more out of it, but taking a lot more risk. So I was around that 10, 12 mark, which was really good. I loved it. We had a great team, great culture. But then I saw to grow the business, I'm going to have to take on a lot more personal risk, which I wasn't really prepared to do. And then an offer come through. We had a number of offers to buy us, some genuine, some not so genuine.
These were just came to you, these offers. You were doing such a good job in your marketplace that they came, which often happens.
Yeah, we had a couple of competitors wanted to take us out, and we had a great client list. And as that stage, it must have been I was getting a little bit bored. I wanted to do something a bit different. So we had a great offer from a company called WSP, or a global company listed on the London Stock Exchange. They were buying up a number of companies in Australia. They made me a great offer. In fact, an offer too good to refuse. 8 times earnings, cash up front, with no earn-out or very little earn-out. So I thought, that's a great opportunity. I had a young family, wanted to build a house. So it was a really good opportunity to set ourselves up for life.
Yep.
And then have a great job.
Yeah.
It put me into a role where I was running 5 countries, sitting on a global board out of London. So a great learning experience, in my mid-30s to be able to do that.
Was that your first own business?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a small minority partner with me. We got a great deal, as I said, for a professional services firm to get that type of valuation. It made sense to do it. And I think in any time you've got a business, you've got to be a little bit not emotive about the deal. And that I found one of the biggest challenges is it often becomes the person's purpose in life, which is fine.
Yeah, I want to talk a lot of...
Yeah, but when you go to sell, you've got to be very unemotive, and that can be very challenging for a lot of people. They can't let go. So I had made the conscious decision, if I was going to sell, I was going to go full throttle on the other side of the deal because I wanted to do other things. So, but a lot of people can't let go.
Yeah.
And anyway, so it was a great learning experience. Got to run 10 other companies and bring them all together. And after 3.5 years, I had 3 kids under 3.5, going to be spending 8 months a year overseas. And I got approached to do another role with a listed company called Greencap. And they did a roll-up pre-GFC of 10 companies, did no due diligence, and GFC hit no...
Paper money.
Yeah, paper money and a lot of debt. So I got brought in to sort of fix that up and sell off assets, buy new assets, and then change the whole dynamic.
Right.
So did that for 5 years, and that was a really hard running a listed company at 38 in a turnaround situation. We got there. I was keen to capitalise the business and take it global, but the board said, no, you've done a great job fixing it, now we sell it. So we got bought out by Wesfarmers, the division of what was called Wesfarmers Industrial Safety Products, doubled the share price. I thought if we had waited another year or so, we could have done a lot better, but that was the board's decision. And sold into Wesfarmers.
So that, how many years on from the first one was that?
That was probably about 10 years.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, but it's still 2 significant exits.
Yeah.
And from there, what was the...
At that time too, I was heavily involved in cricket administration, so I was taking up a lot more of my time. So I was travelling around with cricket, and fortunate enough to become chairman of Cricket Australia, which was another great experience, meeting people around the world and being, something you're deeply passionate about, to have an influence, especially post-Sandpaper Gate, when I was brought in to help fix that up. Very challenging, but very rewarding as well.
Yeah.
And I had 13 years on the board of Cricket Australia, which was, some of the best times of my life.
Yeah.
But in the media, which
but also, it coincided with probably the lowest moment in Australian cricket.
Yeah, so that was working through that and the challenges that it made you realise how much cricket that is in the tapestry of Australian society, and when you let the Australian public down, it was really challenging. But to the credit of the boys bounced back and changed their behaviour, and I think they've got a great team now. I think they're great ambassadors for the sport. The women's team is fantastic, so very, very lucky. At the same time, then I was on a board of another ASX listed company as non-executive director, another fixer-upper. I don't know how I get involved in fixer-uppers, but there was a company called MSL. They did sports technology, so they golf link, they do all the tap and go POS systems for stadiums around the world and the like. I must admit, I had done my due diligence again. I may not have got on that board. Once I got in there, it wasn't doing very well. Saddled with a lot of debt, losing money, share price, I think got down to about 2 cents a share. And the institutional investors weren't happy and they wanted blood. So I got brought in. I was there when that happened. They brought in a new board and it was a turnaround. We did fantastic. Well, even through COVID, we did really well. Did some really, really smart acquisitions, which turned the fortunes around for us. And we sold that 12 months ago today, actually, to private equity. We sold it for 30 cents a share. So it was a great turnaround for the shareholders, a great story, 1,500% return on investment turnaround. So 15 banger, love them. And I'm still involved in the background with the private equity firm as an advisor for them.
Right. It's, there's some meaty roles you've had, but that it does go on. So you're still involved. Your key role at the minute is as syndicate chair for one of the CEO institutes.
Yeah, one of my side jobs. So I've still got my own consulting company. I just recently sold, ironically, to a big insurance broker called Steadfast. So I'm still there in the capacity of CEO of the consulting arm. But on the side, I'm a syndicate chair of the CEO Institute, where I coach and mentor CEOs of sort of $30 to $300 million turnover businesses, which I love. It's a passion of mine. It's very lonely being a CEO, and only a CEO would know that. So it's a great opportunity to give back, but also help other aspiring CEOs.
And you've got some interest in racing thoroughbreds. That's a personal passion.
Yeah, I used to. I've sort of got out of that now. My wife and I bred race horses for about 15 years. Loved it. But things sort of, when you got 3 kids at private school and bills to pay, that got put on the back burner. But we had some great fun and some reasonable success with it.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot in that, but being on both sides of the transaction, which you were, is really interesting. Good place to start. So can I go back to your first exit? Was it always a plan? Did you start the business with an exit in mind? I mean, there's a lot of chat a lot of promotion of the idea that you should be building to exit from day one. But was that the case with you, or was it a bit more
partially?
serendipitous?
I just saw an opportunity in the marketplace. I was working for a firm. My values didn't align with theirs. And I do my own thing. I've always been entrepreneurial, always want to have my own business, but always in the back of your mind, you're there to sell your business at some stage. You can do it as a job, so you're buying yourself a job. Nothing wrong with that at all, and I've seen a lot of people do very, very well out of that. But at some stage, I wanted to grow it and have an event, a life-changing event. So I think it's very important when you start a business. Your business is always for sale, whether you know it or not. If someone can offer you enough money, it's very hard to knock back. So I think when people are running their own business, when they get through what I call the honeymoon phase, the excitement, the fear of running your business, when you get into what I call the growth phase of your business, you should always have the back of your mind that some stage this could be the life-changing event. I need to be ready for it and make sure I do it properly. I see a lot of small businesses don't. They don't plan for that. So when someone comes and offers them, they're very flattered, but what they don't realise, they could be doing a lot better if they had planned properly for it.
Yeah. And look, it's between running your business and choosing consciously to cap it almost. I only want to be small, however you measure that, which you said is fine. I agree totally. There's a lot of very successful people out there that kind of know their boundaries or know their limits, and that's a good thing. And then there are others who are headstrong about getting an exit event, but in the middle there's a lot of businesses that and owners and all these businesses are driven by owners. They're in between, and that's where you've got roles as non-executive director and chair, and guiding those people along, because it's you can get really busy running the business and you can feel like you're having fun, or you can feel super stressed. But you need a plan of some sort, whether it's to hold it and just be happy with what you've got, or exit it.
And both are fine strategies. And I've seen a lot of great people do really, really well having a small little business, 4 or 5 people, stick to their knitting. They're very passionate, very technical, probably a subject matter expert in something, and they can build a really good lifestyle for themselves. And you go for any pain in any business, and we've seen that through COVID. Things come out, you don't really know what to do. But when you're comfortable with what you're doing, you've got a good underlying business, you don't have to sell. You can have that lifestyle, and you can do some really good things with that. But if you do want to grow, you've got to be under when you do sell, you only get one crack at it. And I see a lot of organisations fail or not maximise their value because, one, they haven't got either the right mindset or the right structures in place to maximise their value.
So what are some of the things you think are really important there if you're giving advice to one of your clients, your syndicate members, the CEO? What are the really important things to make it easier to sell? Yeah,
I think you've got to give yourself a good runway of at least a couple of years, because you think if someone's going to buy, they're going to look at your last 2 years' figures. So if you've got business got what I call a lot of toys, where you got cars and properties, and you're taking a lot of cash out and have a lot of fun, that's fine, but you've got to understand that's going to be diminished to your value. So you've got to be able to clean up your balance sheet, get a good show that you're growing and you're growing strongly and you've got a good client base. So sometimes that takes a good 2 years to work out through the system to clean up your balance sheet. Because remember, if you're selling your business and say 8 times earnings, well, every dollar you save, you're going to get an 8-time investment. And I don't think a lot of people realise that. So they're taking all cash out of the business, but you got to times that by 8 or 5 or 10 or whatever it might be. That's the impact it's having on your business.
Yeah, pay a little bit of tax before then, but then you get 8. That's why. I think the appetite, particularly when bigger companies are buying smaller companies, the appetite to go through and say, "Oh, look, I've got to add back this." It just makes it just smells a little bit more, doesn't it?
It makes for a messier transaction, and always leaves a bit of a bad taste in everyone's mouth. So I think the cleaner your balance sheet and your business can be for 2 years prior to your sale process is really, really important, and that you've got to be disciplined to do that, and have a very clear plan about how you're going to do that. Because when they open up the books, I want to see everything's clean and you don't have to sell assets and get rid of leases and things. And when you're on the buy side, anything you can go to value, you're going to try and use. So you want to make sure that you don't give them an opportunity to claw back the value of your business. And that's in DD, that's what they'll do.
Oh, claw back the headline number. Which is a big trap, isn't it? Someone gets an approach and there's a number floated, and it looks pretty exciting, and that the next 6, 9, 12 months are about validating that we should pay that, but really in a lot of cases it's about just chipping away at the price. And it's where if you have management accounts or financial reporting that's not up to scratch, and you've taken your foot off the accelerator a bit because you think it's all going to get done, it's when you get in trouble.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of big traps there. Firstly, one, it's a big distraction, and people do take their eye off the ball because they're so focused on the deal. And generally you've got limited resources where the buyer's got a lot of resources, and they're going to be asking a heap of questions that it takes you away from running the business, and then the deal may not get done. So that's a big trap for people, I think. The other one is if you haven't got your systems up to place, particularly your small business buying you, and that's a big risk for a bigger company. So the more you can show you've got systems in place, long-term contracts, long-term supply agreements, etc., it's going to go to your value. But if you've got no systems in place or little, the business is totally reliant on you, you're a key person risk, then the value decreases both in terms of the quantum they'll pay, but also the number times earnings they'll pay. So having those systems in place, showing you're a proper business, not a one-man band or heavily reliant on the owner, is really critical.
Yeah, that's why this 2 or 3 year runway is so important, isn't it? Because if you draw a line in the sand today and you make a decision that you would like to set sail for an exit, then you do have time to look at those things. You may, if you've got 3 months, there's only so much you can do. What I see a lot of in the last 12, 18, 20 months, and it goes back to your first business. You got approached out of the blue, but I think that's happening more and more. And this idea that you have a planned exit is a good thing. If that's what you want to do, you have a plan and you work towards that plan. But also factor in that if you've got a growing, successful business, the probability of a call from someone saying, we like what you're doing, or we're a bit concerned that you're going so well, we're better. That happens all the time. We had, in the last episode, I had Pete Seligman from Sydney, who's professional search investor. He's invested in tens and tens of businesses, and that is something that if you wanted to exit plan, you've got to factor in that unknown, because successful businesses will be on the radar of bigger businesses in your industry. Yeah.
And I myself, when we're looking at doing roll-ups, you scan the market and you'll know who's out there, and you might have 20, 30 on your list, and you work through your list, and then, so you may not know, but you're on a list somewhere, generally, if you're doing a good job. And you've got to be ready for that.
It's a sales pipeline of merger and acquisition opportunities. How did you handle that first call you got the first time for one of your own businesses, and would you approach it differently now?
The WSP deal wasn't our first offer. We had 3 or 4, and that taught me a lot.
Oh, okay.
One was about how much distraction it could be, and how disappointing you could be when people caught you and then they come back with a number and go, you're just wasting my time. So, okay, that gave me a lesson. Well, if I'm going to do it, we'll do it properly, but do it on our terms. So we knocked back a lot. No, I'm not talking to you. We want to focus on doing this. But when these people introduced me by a third party who I knew really well, and their value or their strategy really excited me, and I thought I can go work there. And I was only young. So when you're young, you say, well, okay, what's the next 5 years look like after I sell it? And like anything, a pay rise or when you get a big check, the value of that only lasts 6 weeks. The excitement of that lasts 6 weeks. Then you're back into the reality of life.
Yeah.
So it can't be more about just the money. It's got to be about purpose.
Yeah.
Now, it's fine if you're older and you're retiring and it's your exit event and your superannuation, great, you'd ride off into the sunset. But when you're young and you've got a lot more to do, you've got to be, okay, you've got to be able to go somewhere that's going to keep you interested, where you can grow as a person and have opportunities. Otherwise, why would you do it? So I think where you go is just as important as why you want to go there.
Yeah. So that probably means that in those discussions with that acquirer, it's got to be a two-way thing, doesn't it? So you've really, aside from the number, particularly the earlier you are in your career or ownership, the more important it is for you to kind of treat it like if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. There'll be somebody, you can keep growing your business, but you said get excited. And I think that's really they've got to open up the kimono on their side as well, right? So you can say, well, I could see myself in this organisation, or it is too hierarchical or too whatever, and it's just not going to suit. So even if the number was attractive, you may decide to pass.
Yeah, exactly right. I think most people jump in it too early without actually thinking of the strategic rationale. I know when we sold Green Cap to Wesfarmers, I just didn't agree with the strategic rationale, why they're buying it. It didn't make sense to me. And when
you were suspicious almost.
Yeah, very suspicious. It made sense. Well, it was good for the shareholders. They wanted an event. But as a CEO or MD running a business, I saw the value we could still keep creating. And while I was, obviously the board said we're selling it, well, went into it, 100% committed to doing that. I could never understand the strategic intent from effectively a retailer or wholesaler of products buying a professional services firm. Never made sense to me. And it played out on the other side of the deal. It was just a total disconnect about what we did and what value we could offer them. And then I said, well, I left after 18 months because it just wasn't what I wanted, and I could see the business was being eroded by just a disconnect between value proposition, between strategic intent and risk appetite. So it made a real easy decision to go do something else. I left on good terms and still, but it just wasn't for me. And I could see the business was going to change I didn't think for the better. Yeah.
I mean, that's there are owners that have that legacy element, the top of the tree, and I encourage those two-way conversations if there is some interest from a buyer as to what will they do with the business, because some people really do deeply care about it, and could be reflected in caring about the staff or the suppliers or whatever, but they care about it deeply. So you can't be afraid to ask searching questions of the other side.
Yeah, you're doing your DD on them as much as they're doing it on you. And the numbers are the easy side of any deal. The numbers will work out one way or the other. They'll work out or won't work out, and you get a value. But it's about the people. And I remember speaking to somebody who did a lot of acquisitions for Amazon. He goes, the first 10 meetings we have is about the people. The numbers are the last thing we look at. So one, if I'm on the buy side, can those people deliver? Are they fit for our culture? Are they fit for what we want to do? Have they got the capability? So that's where a lot of where you should spend most of your time in any deal, right? The numbers are the easiest part of any deal.
You've been in a lot of people, consulting businesses. Yeah. If you're going to stay with the organisation, you do probably have to fundamentally agree with what the general direction is, but also you don't want to go to work and hate it.
Yeah, and I see that a lot, and I always challenge people when they're buying their business. It's great to get a big check, and that's fun. It's great, and it's validation of all your hard work. But you've also got to give up something. You've got to be prepared to give up some freedom, give up and be part of a bigger machine where you're not in control. And if you can't do that, don't sell, because you're going to be miserable. Yes, you might have a lot of money, but you're going to be miserable. Conversely, on the buy side, they're the first questions I ask if I'm buying a people-related business about why do you want to sell? Why do you want to come to us? What would you want to do? Because when you run your own business, you put so much discretionary effort into it. And I find if you buy the wrong people business, then you lose that discretionary effort. They become what I call 9-to-5ers. And you've lost all the value they've created for you. And then people leave and they get disenchanted and it falls apart. That's why 80% of most deals fail, because they don't consider, I don't think, the cultural aspects and on the other side of the deal, what do we do?
Well, there's this, I think the bigger up the value scale you go, the more there is this financial, and the financials are how it's measured, and particularly in the listed company environment, but it can almost, be that first, and then, can we marry these two organisations together? And you're so far down the track, sometimes it's too late to do anything about it, but it really, you'd think starting with, can we marry these two organisations and the people?
Yeah. A great example when a few years ago now when CommBank bought Colonial First State. Colonial First State was a ripping business, make a lot of money. The first thing CommBank did when they bought it was, you've got to be like us. And so all the value that Colonial had, built because of their great culture and great process, that was just eroded straight away because they made them fit into their model, which the reason they bought them because they were more entrepreneurial, doing great things, and destroy their culture overnight. So that's why to be careful when you're selling to bigger companies. You don't get caught up in this big amorphous mass and destroy the value you've created.
Yeah. Hi there. It's just a quick interruption to the podcast, and it's a message from Kerr Capital, a supporter of the podcast. If you're a business owner thinking about selling and you're unsure about what you should do, Well, the worst thing you can do is jump straight into an unprepared business sale. Cross your fingers and hope for the best. If you want to take control, get a sense of what your business is really worth and a plan to make it more sellable, then head over onto the Kerr Capital website, check out the value and sellability diagnostic. If it piques your interest, contact me, Michael Kerr, or book one of the free 45-minute diagnostic calls. Now let's head back to the podcast. I just want to go back to that question when you're on the buy side of, why are you selling your business? It's such a vital question, and the answer back is pretty formative in the way you go about assessing something, isn't it?
Yeah. So my experience is either I want an event to happen because I want to retire, but I want to look after my people, or I see that we can't go the next level, we need help because we're capital constrained. And I think between us working with you, we can create something I couldn't do by myself, which is very legitimate because you get to a stage, I can't fund this. So I need a bigger brother or a bigger sister to come and help me do that, which is a legitimate form. Or you get excited because someone's offered me a lot of money, which to me is probably the wrong answer because they haven't thought through all the other things around, what do I do post-deal and how do I, how's my life going to change? And
so it will dramatically.
Yeah. And if the buyer's saying, and a classic one, if on the sell side, if nothing changes, well, that's bullshit. Sorry, that's right. And it's the biggest lie they tell because it does change and it needs to change. Yeah. So you can't expect people to give you money, a lot of money, and then not to have things change in your life. So you got to be prepared for that. And before you both mentally and physically be prepared, you are going to lose control. And so a lot of getting your mindset right as an owner that, yes, I've got a responsibility too. If people are going to give me money, I've got a responsibility to make sure this thing works. I see a lot of owners, as soon as they catch the check, they're out the door already, which is, to me, not very ethical.
Yeah, well, and it's also it on their behalf possibly, but also on the buyer's behalf, haven't pressed hard enough about what they really want to do. Yeah. And they haven't, maybe there's been some misunderstandings, but in the end, if you're going to marry those two organisations, you've got to have those conversations early about how we're going to work together.
Exactly.
Which takes a lot of this where a lot of these discussions go haywire because a lot of trust is needed to open up about. Yep. I do want to sell because, or I do want to grow, but I don't have the resources. You don't have that conversation every day with anybody that knocks on the door, do you?
No.
You've got it. So that the coming together and having an open conversation about where this business could go and why it could benefit both sides needs a lot of trust and maybe some relationship building prior to that.
Yeah, very much so, particularly if they're a competitor. You don't want to be giving away too much. And secondly, and when you do it in the discussion, it's like any relationship, you've got to feel comfortable and trustworthy enough to open up. You might have some fears and challenges. I don't know what to do anymore. It's very hard to tell someone who's about to give you a big check. So having that trustful relationship and also making sure who's doing the deal is who I'm actually going to be working with on the other side. And from a buy side, I've always been very clear the people doing the DD aren't the ones they're going to be working with on the other side of the deal. For a couple of reasons. One is in any DD, you can get quite heated and quite challenging, and you would have been through a lot of that, Michael, and you can get, why am I doing this? And so you want a circuit breaker because you have to work with these people on the other side. So I always separate the deal team from the management team. Yes, you need to have a relationship with those people, but they don't do the DD. That also then solves the issue of people getting what I call deal hungry, where they put so much emotional time and effort and money into it, they've got to get the deal done, even though it may not be the right thing to do. So having, on a buy side, having a DD team very separate to the people who are going to be working with on the side of the deal, they build the relationship, but the people doing the DD are a very separate team. And they're very focused on that. And but you've also got to educate the other side. They can ask the hard questions. That's their job to do that. And equally, you should have your own people doing that of us. The other thing too, I think it's a lot of small business try and skimp on the money when they're doing DD. Pay the money. If you get, no disrespect to your local accountant or whatever, but if they haven't had proper M&A experience dealing with bigger firms, their legal teams, you are going to get screwed over on your value.
Yeah.
So you need spend the money. Remember, if you're getting 8-9 times every dollar you save is going to go increase. So you need to make sure you spend the money, invest wise, and get the best possible advice you can afford.
Yeah, yeah, and the expert advice who do that stuff all the time. And as you said, there are really good advisors around across law and accounting and all sorts of fields. But in the pinch of doing a deal, you need someone who's accustomed. Yeah,
who's on your side. And most people haven't got the experience to negotiate hardcore sale agreements.
No.
So you want someone on your side who can go in there and be your bulldog, protect your interests, but also know the bigger picture is, yes, we want to get a deal done.
Yeah.
And we want to get the best possible deal, but we also got to work with these people on the other side.
Yeah.
But you're there representing I don't have to be in the room. That's where you get emotion.
Yeah.
And when you get emotion, you don't necessarily get a better outcome.
Yeah, that's right. And those, the challenge with those long-standing advisors can be you've got a personal friendship with them and they only want the best. So, but you need someone, as you say, to ask the hard questions, and then to be able to also relate that to what you need to be clear with them what a good outcome looks like.
Yeah, and they need to be able to manage your expectations too. Sometimes you go in there and you've got your expectations up here, but reality is you're here. I see a lot of owners, when they're selling, got this unrealistic expectation of their value. And it's hard to talk them down from that, because very emotional, it's their baby, their life, their family. So you've got to have a good advisor who will do the best for you, but also manage your own expectations as well.
Well, I think that's, early. It's if you plan. I would like to talk about if an owner's sitting there wondering. Let's say they're at a stage where they're thinking, I'm probably 3 to 5 years where I'd like to be out. I mean, to do it properly can take 3 or 5 years. I think that's number one point to make. What do you advise those? How do you kickstart? Like you can say, I know I'd like to be out in 3 to 5 years. I'd like to get X $1 million, whatever it is, because I think it's worth that. So, but where does that start today? What are the first important things?
I'd go back, we're going to be in 10 years. So if your plan is in 10 years, you're totally retired, you're playing golf and fishing, great, let's work backwards. You're going to play golf and fish so many times.
Yes.
So what other things you're going to do in your life that's going to be purposeful? And if you feel that, you might be doing other not-for-profit work or volunteer work or
be on boards,
that's great. But work backwards from that.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people, particularly now, we've got the baby boomers coming through, so many businesses who haven't got an exit plan, yet they need to sell or want to sell, but they haven't thought about what's the future look like. So you've got to start where you want to be in 10 years and work backwards from that. Well,
that's personally mainly, right? Yeah. But also then where the business fits into that.
Yeah, and then you work backwards from that. Okay, I want to get to here. Here's what I've got to do. And planning that, who do you want to sell to? So having a list of what would the perfect deal look like in terms of, I love that business over there because I think bringing the 1 + 1 could equal 3. And I know they'll look after my people and me. That's really critical. So having a hit list of people you'd like to sell to, scanning the market, understanding what else is out there. Or you might even do something, okay, well, my business, I'm only going to get 3 times multiple for it. Well, not that, but in 5 years, if I added a smaller one I could buy in the meantime, I could get 5 times in 3 years. So you can be strategic in doing your own little acquisition first to give you scale and size, which is going to give you a much bigger multiplier in 5 years' time. So if you're doing a review of your business, so look, we're a bit too small. I want 5 times earnings, but we're only going to get 3 because the size we are. But if I buy another one and bring them together, I could get 7. So they're the things why you need that 5-year runway to plan where you want to be in that 10-year.
Yeah, because you're actually looking ahead at, firstly, you're making a list of potential buyers. Right? That's, for a lot of businesses, the only genuine buyer is going to come from within your supply chain or industry. So it shouldn't be that hard. There are mainstream businesses and buyers could come from anywhere. But let's just talk about the businesses. If you can sit down and whiteboard, I do this all the time. Who should buy you and why? Yeah. And the why is equally as important because you start to think about how your business could bolt onto theirs or fold in. So then you go to you don't have to go and ring them tomorrow, but you need to start thinking about who and why, and then you need to track, as you said, what goes on in the industry. So are there transactions or deals going on at 3 times earnings or 10 times earnings. So you can start, but I think you need to bring that down a little bit even more granular to get your business assessed by someone who knows what, and say if you had to sell tomorrow, this is what you'd get. And it's often a real wake-up call.
It is,
but if it's 3 months before your hope for exit timeline, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
If it's 5 years, then it really sets, if you want to go after it, you then have a platform from which to do different things, like focus on one area of the business, not another, but to grow the multiple and grow the earnings. And,
you need to plan for that. And it's going to take at least 2 budget cycles to show you got the numbers. That's going to look at.
Because you can't point to it's all going to change next quarter.
Yeah, they want to see the results, and that's part of the, but you also got to show the future growth opportunities. Another one too is getting your contracting in place. So make sure your clients are on long-term contracts, making sure you're not concentrated too much on one client. That's another big red flag for a buyer.
Yep.
The 80% of your earnings is coming from one client. That's a big risk that client walks. So making sure you got diversity of client base. Your key staff are all lined up. Either they've got their contracts or they're not going to walk. So there might be you might need to do some sort of deal or get some upside as part of any transaction if they hang around. Because the last thing you want to be selling your business and all your key people leave and become competitors, which happens a lot. Yeah. And that's going to be, they're the key risks the buyer's going to look at. So sustainability, revenue streams, cost base, and your key people. And they're you've got to lock them all in place, and it might take you that 3 or 5 year runway.
The obvious assistance you can get there is, as the owner, if you are a key person in that business, you can stay and run it yourself, or you can, if you're planning longer term, you can factor in time under their ownership. But it goes to what we were talking about earlier. You've got to make sure you actually wouldn't mind working. It's not going to be perfect, but if you can get to a point where you think, I've then got my exit sorted, I'm going to be involved for a couple of years, I'm excited, or I can deal with that. That's vitally important. And some of those risks of having, concentration with a few key customers, or even the fact that you, as the founder, are really important in the business, you can mitigate and offset that by, being ready to work with the buyer for a period of time. Yeah,
and it might be some steps in there too. You might develop a strategic partnership where you help each other out, particularly if you've got complementary services or products. So let's develop a strategic relationship where we'll work together on projects to get a bit of a feel for each other as well, a bit of a try before you buy. And I find that's a great way too. Then I've got to know their culture a bit more. It's not really right for me, my people. But no, I see a lot more opportunity. Let me in there. So I think it is some little steps along the way you can do. Yes. Or it could even be a partial sell down. It could be, okay, I'll sell you 30% now. I've still got control, but with a view that in 2 or 3 years' time, if certain hurdles are met, I'll sell outright to you, which is another good opportunity to keep control, work through a process and become comfortable with each other.
Yeah, it's the... you're right in agitating by more proactively going to competitors or suppliers or customers and saying, how about we, with the overarching logic is maybe they're going to be a buyer of our business, but let's get to know them a bit more and see how they react.
I've got a couple I'm helping at the moment. They're going through that process at the moment. Because they see together they can be far more powerful, but it's just doing the dance at the moment, whether how much we want to be together. Is it a bit of a de facto relationship, or we're going to before we get married? Yeah.
What's your thoughts on? And we've done a few of these non-binding indicative offers where I'm a huge fan of. There are it's a dating analogy. You don't know each other, you're getting to know each other a bit, you go on a first date and maybe you get married, but the using something like a non-binding indicative offer, which if you haven't heard the term, it's a summary of the top line deal terms, and it puts a bit of an onus on both parties to do certain things to continue to explore the deal. That may not be the perfect legal definition, but it's a working, what it's so powerful at doing is getting both sides to commit to documenting some things without it being binding, but it indicates that we're getting closer or we're moving further away because it's written down that we're going to we're looking at doing this deal. It's confidential. Here's some high-level commercial terms, key deal terms. We need you to stay on for 3 years. You're the founder. We need, and you get to the point. No, I can't do that. Or they highlight. There's highlighted problems that you've got some time to fix, and if you don't, but that sort of governing documents are a really important one, isn't it? To guide discussions from a phone call through all the way to a deal.
Yeah, good and bad. So good is it shows some intent, and that's great. But going back to my previous point, if you're going and thinking that's the deal, it's not the deal.
No, it's definitely not the deal.
And I think people got to educate themselves that NBIO is not a deal. So the number's not going to be the number. It might go up, more likely going to come down. So be prepared for that. Secondly, I see a lot of big companies, you lock yourself in for too long a period of exclusivity. Remember, they've got another heap of other deals. So that's not the most important thing. It's the most important thing in your life, but it's not the most important thing in their life. So keep a really sharp non-exclusivity period. It's not going to waste your time.
Yeah.
You want to get to know quick. If it's not going to happen, get to know quick so you're not wasting your time, your resources, and be focused on other things. Because I see these draw out, and all of a sudden you look up at 6 months, you haven't hit your numbers because you've been so focused on this, you haven't been driving the business. So maximum I would give anyone is 6 weeks. If you can't get a deal done in 6 weeks to that position, well, we're not, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So, but I've seen them drag out for 12 months sometimes, and it's just a total distraction.
Yeah, and I think that goes to like poor creation of one of those documents.
Yeah.
And you've got to, it's like you've got to be deal sharp, right? This is you can't have open-ended due diligence. You can't have exclusivity. There's things you just. And early days is the time to say and to also stand your ground. We're not if you receive one of these from a larger company and they're external advisors, you say we're not even close. We're having an early discussion.
Yeah.
We're not going to. So, and that's good to push back hard on things that just don't make sense.
Yeah. I've had discussion on both sides where people really negotiate hard. And I said, well, guess what? When you buy me, I'm going to be negotiating just as hard for you. So it's a good thing. Yeah. For all it's done with respect and dignity, of course. Yeah. But this is your one shot at it. They're not going to go easy on you. They're going to give the best deal for their shareholders. And you're your shareholder. You've got to do the best deal for you. That's why I think having independent advice in the middle, doing the day-to-day crunching is really important. So you take you out of the equation as much as you can. You ultimately got control when you want to sell, if you don't want to sell, but have those people having those hard conversations because you're not experienced enough to do it.
Yeah,
you might be the best deal maker in your industry, but you're not going to do that with a lawyer on the other side of the table around whatever it might be or accountants.
Yeah, and that and when you talk about deal making, there it's in respect of that core service offering or the core business, but it's a whole different thing negotiating a business sale agreement.
Yeah, very much so. And leave it to the experts. I know it's probably the most important thing you do in your life business-wise, so you've got to try and make it as unemotive as possible. Yeah. Sometimes it's impossible to do, but end of the day, it's about a transaction and getting the best deal you can.
Yeah, which it goes to also your nearest and dearest, right? Founder has been in the business for 20, 30, 40 years and they've got to personally, as you said earlier, look 10 years ahead and go, what am I going to do? Because they're wired in a particular way that it's often pretty hard just to play golf a lot or go.
Especially if you play golf like me, it's frustrating.
Haven't done that yet, but I'll take your word on it. But it is, there is a big void, and that flows on to your nearest and dearest, your family, and so it does require some introspection and about assume you get a deal that's worthwhile. What actually am I going to do, and how's that going to? Is that going to be disruptive? When you're not in an office or in a factory or whatever you're doing 40, 50, 60 hours a week and all
your
of a sudden...
partner may not want to have you around for lunch every day. They're not used to it. You've been driving this business for 20, 30 years. It's been, and they've been up on the ups and downs and highs with you. It's part of their life too, but it's got to be a family thing because you've got no idea what's going to happen on the other side unless you plan. Your wife may not want to see you home every day.
Yeah.
And still so dearly, but that's your lifestyle. So you've got to have that broader chat with your family and
your partner. Like, there's two, whatever. There's a family structure often, and it can be quite disruptive for one or other or both. Thinking about bringing this to back to what your role is currently. You're a non-executive director, you're a mentor, you're a chair, and is a lot of the thinking of those businesses and those owners about an exit event, or are you working with some who see that they're a long-term holder of a business? And
a combination of both. So I've got I'm like an independent chair advisor to them. We're more about growing the business at the moment, so accessing capital, helping them grow it to get to a stage where they can have an exit.
So this is going out for some private equity or some...
Yeah, and that's a tough market at the moment, so once again, managing expectations. So getting their position so they can go ask for capital. So it's the same thing. You're wanting access to capital or debt to grow the business. It's effectively the same process of selling your business.
Indeed it is, yeah.
So getting them, okay, here's what you need to have in place to go ask for capital because I want to grow internationally or open up new offices. Or it could be, I want to retire in a few years, what do we do? So I'm involved in both sides of that, in what I call the growth phase and the exit phase. So I do a lot of that work and do board roles and do a lot of coaching and mentoring, which I love, and learn from all the mistakes I've made, and do a lot around governance of boards, which is something I'm passionate about too, how they manage the business, how they manage governance and risk, and to allow businesses to grow. So,
do a lot of those conversations, I can imagine them getting down nitty gritty on the personal aspirations, legacy, or
very much so, because we get caught up in our business. That's right. It's a passion thing, and it's hard work. Not many people can work 9 to 5 in their own business. It doesn't work like that. It's a 24/7 thing, and it takes a certain type of people who are entrepreneurial, which I've got a lot of respect for people who own their business because I know how hard it is. They haven't got the cushy middle management job where you take a paycheck and you can turn off at 5 o'clock. And it becomes entwined in your personality. So really understanding where you want to go, what's driving, what's your purpose. And always come back, what is your purpose in the business? If it's just to make money, great, we can do that. It's about creating an environment of culture for people to grow and you'll get at some stage you'll get an exit. Also great. So really understand what makes them tick, what's their motivation and where they want to be, and always what's your long-term plan.
I think it's pretty hard. We're talking small businesses here, and which can be hundreds of millions of turnover, certainly tens of, but many of them are owner-centric, and that's I think we've said this a few times. We both love and respect that, and what we're trying to encourage is to be just really clear with what you want to do with your business and your team, and that's so I think we're getting some good advice early. Think 10 years ahead, and just be conscious, because going into, I think it's phasing out, but this idea that you can just put your business on the market and sell it when you're ready is...
It's a bit naive.
It's naive. Yeah.
And once again, if that's why, even if you're not planning to sell your business, an offer could come tomorrow. So always have your business ready for sale.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean the nth degree, but have your balance sheet up to date, making sure you're managing your debt, all those various things at the first line they're going to look at. So even if you may not have a plan, if someone's going to offer you enough money, you'll eventually sell your business.
Yeah.
So you've got to be ready for that.
Yeah.
So a deal could come tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you have to, and it's good business practice anyway. You should be doing those things running a business.
Yeah, look, I think it's really it is easy to get caught and be incredibly good at what you do and make and have a successful business. But what we're saying here is there's even if you're not considering selling, but especially if you are, you've got to have it's almost like you've got to have another hat on, which is I've got a sense of what my business might be worth. I've got a sense of who's going to buy it. I've got some advisors at the ready to help me if I need to start proactively planning. But it is, and it's really hard when you're out there working all those hours to say, then now I got to think about, you can't, because I don't think you can just completely outsource the sale of your business. It starts with you. Yeah. And so tracking who's who in the industry, but tracking it from the point of view who's buying,
and why they're buying.
Why are they buying?
Yeah.
And so that it's another hat you've got to wear.
Yeah.
Or which is I think increasingly popular and important and makes a lot of sense, is to have an advisory board or have some counsel, someone you trust, a couple of people you trust. You get and talk, particularly someone that brings experience of taking businesses through a sale process. Yeah. It could be a coffee meeting once every 6 months, but as the owner, it's on you to have wear that other hat and be active in thinking about who's going to buy and why.
Yeah, I'm establishing an advisory board at the moment for a startup in the biotech industry, and that's the thing. I said, get an advisory board. You don't appoint them directors yet. Get an advisory board, because as you grow through your growth stage, you're going to need different skills. But you reward them whatever way you want to reward them. But have good people around you. You can bounce ideas off and bounce and get challenged, is more importantly. You don't want yes people and people to challenge your thinking and why you're doing that. So an advisory board is great. It doesn't cost you much. You don't lose control because you're still the director and owner. But I find the advisory board is really good. Now, if you get to a stage where you want to formalise that, you can move that to a more formal governance structure and appoint them as directors. Yeah. An advisory board's great, and people love to help you. And there's people like who have seen what you've gone through, they've done it themselves, they want to help. And I think there's a lot of great people out there who can advise you and be that sounding board. Yeah,
everyone needs it.
Yeah,
and it's more accessible than ever. Pop-up advisory boards, coffee meetings, mentoring, networking groups, with all those Chatham House rules where you can go into, like I'd imagine that's with the CEO Institute. Yeah. It's non-competitive individuals talking about the challenges that they find it really hard
it's
to
group
talk.
Group therapy for CEOs, I call it. And they've all got the same challenges. Doesn't matter if you're running a $30 million business or $300 million. Many of the problems are still the same.
Yeah, and it's that loneliness of being a business owner. It gets talked about a lot, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I know even from a CEO perspective, you're running a bigger business, that you might have a great relationship with the chair and your board, but certain things you don't want to share with them. There's going to be times when you're vulnerable. I don't know what to do, or I'm stuck. Yeah. So you want to have that trusted advisor who is not going to impact on your career, but you can open up, be vulnerable to, and chat. No, same with being a business owner. Yeah. You need to have someone who you trust implicitly, who's got your best interests at heart, but aren't a cheerleader.
Yeah,
they're going to tell you you do is wonderful. They're going to say, why would you do that? But knowing it, and I've got a couple in my life too. If I want to pitch an idea, I'll go straight to them because they'll tell me straight away if it's not going to work or it's bullshit. So having those people you trust implicitly because they know they got your interests at heart, but they'll also be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's you got to let go a little bit, right? Yeah. But and you don't do it. You get hardwired when you're running a business that it's all on you to do this stuff. Yeah. But somewhere you got to. Kind of challenge yourself to bring in a bit of outside counsel at a personal business level. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Earl, been a ripping chat. Thank you.
My pleasure.
It's nitty gritty of deals, and I always like to kind of find out who you look up to, and you've got a pretty active career, mentoring, directing, and owning and raising funds. So, but who do you look up to and take motivation from as you go about doing what you do?
I have a lot of different mentors or people I trust, who I can talk to, where I've been there and done that. I built a great relationship with Sir Peter Cosgrove when he was Governor General, because he loved his cricket. Right. I had some great chats with him, like an MBA in an hour. We're talking about leadership issues and challenges of cricket at the time. But then I've got my mates who I know are older than me and been there and done that in certain aspects of their life, so I can bounce ideas. Yeah. My wife, been fantastic support all the way through, and she's very different to me personality-wise. She's very considered and not, very straight down the line. So if I can get it through the head of the opposition, normally it's a good idea. But having those support people around you and having great family and great friends who you can tap into is probably the best. And there's a lot of good business advisors out there who've been there and done it. And always up for a coffee. Yeah. So don't be frightened. The worst thing they say is no.
Yeah.
So if any aspiring or any business owner out there want to chat to people, reach out to them. It's so easy now, LinkedIn and other way, and it's very hard. Most people say yes.
Yeah. On a slightly different theme, but my kids and kids of friends of coming along, and sometimes I sit with them just about their next steps in their career, and talk about LinkedIn as it seems foreign, but to some of them. But mainly it's saying to them, reach out to people with a bit of do a bit of research. There are many people who would like to help you, and they can be friends of the family, or they can be in an industry that you're contemplating. There are a lot of people, if you ask nicely in the right way, will give you a bit of, and not everyone will give you the right advice, and not everyone will respond, but if inbuilt idea that you should be getting out and meeting new people and getting some influence and some guidance from them is a good thing.
Totally agree. And most people, when they get to our age, they want to give back. They love seeing new people come through having a crack. And I love it. I love when people reach out, come over coffee. Love to. And I really respect if they've done that. And I want to give back. You want to help. You want to. So, don't be shy of asking. You just try to do it the right way. Yeah. And I think now, particularly as we're coming out of COVID, or we have come out of COVID, and people not going back to the office, I think for any business, that's a bad thing, because if you're a young person, entrepreneurial, you're missing out on so many opportunities to network and learn. And I know it's slightly off topic, but getting out and talking to people, meeting people is the best way, and listening.
Yeah, it's almost like it's been challenging for the last 4 or 5 years to actually do that. It's been constrained, and so now I more than ever embrace that. And whether you're our age in business or whoever, younger adults looking to progress their career, they've got shut out of the unis for years. It's all online now. Their first years of career, largely at home or So anyway, slightly off topic, but it's all relevant because we want people, owners and other, to build good networks around them. And
small business makes up 95% of the Australian workforce. You're everywhere, from the local coffee shop to the plumber or whatever it might be. It's the backbone of the Australian economy. So the more they can do it right, the better it is for everybody. So anything we do to help small business is really important. At some stage, you're going to sell it, or you need to sell it because you're retiring. Do it properly, because it could be it's probably, apart from your house you own, it's going to be the biggest financial event in your life. So get it done right.
And way more complex than selling a home. Yeah. And that's, I think, gets misunderstood.
And sometimes a lot more emotional too.
Sometimes, mostly. All right, Earl, if anybody wanted to have a coffee or reach out to you, what's the easiest way?
Probably either on LinkedIn or my email, earl.eddings@gmail.com.
Okay. Earl, much appreciate your time. It's been really insightful. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Small Business Banter, and I hope it was helpful in you getting the most out of your small business ownership. To subscribe or listen back, or to check out any of the resources or information we talked about today, head over to the website smallbusinessbanter.com.au, or if you want, search up Small Business Banter on your favourite podcast player. Don't forget to subscribe, and if it was really helpful, I'd love it if you told another business owner about the podcast. If you thought it was helpful, then how about you leave me a 5-star rating? If you think I can help personally, please reach out to me, Michael Kerr, via the website. There's a new episode out every couple of weeks. We'll catch up then.